All right, welcome everyone. Thank you to Sentient, Eigenlayer, Polygon AWS for having us here today. This next panel, we've got some experts and an investor or two here to talk to us about essential components of a decentralized AI stack and how that is monetized. My name is Tim Khoury. I'm a partner at Lightspeed Faction. Maybe if we could just go down really quickly, if everyone could just share their name, what company they're from, and then a sentence or two about what they're working on. That would be a great way to get started.
Awesome. I guess I'll kick it off. My name's Stone Gettings. I'm part of the founding team and head of growth over at Mira Network. Essentially what we're doing is providing a trustless verification for AI outputs. And so we're leveraging multiple different LLMs that acts as your own personal experts that verify the outputs before they're spit back to the end user, driving a 10x reduction in error rates and facilitating a lot more reliability in this age of hallucination and bias.
Hey guys, this is Ram. I'm one of the co-contributors at Open Ledger. We are a blockchain network for AI. We enable users to cross-collaborate with data and build specialized AI models. Larger language models are predominantly very generalized. Specialized models are verticalized for a particular subject, and that's what we enable. And we built a protocol around that distributes rewards to all the contributors.
Hey everyone, I'm Matthew, one of the co-founders of OpenGradient. What we do, simply put, is we're a full-stack platform that allows developers to integrate any model into any application on any chain in a way that is both seamless and secure. We have a model hub where people can upload customized AI or ML models that they can leverage out of the box. They can build this into kind of verifiable workflows on chain. And we want to make on-chain applications smarter with AI.
Hello, my name is Stepan Gershuni. I'm from CyberFund. CyberFund is a research-driven investment firm. We've been investing in crypto since 2014, focusing mostly on early-stage and infrastructure projects. And for the past 2 years, we focus a lot on AI research, investment, doing open source grants, doing venture investments, and research in this space, yeah.
Hi guys, my name is Bidhan. I'm the founder of this project called Bagel. And at Bagel, we make open source AI monetizable. What that means is that it's a very interesting and new way of training models where a lot of open source developers can contribute to an open source AI model. And then when that model makes money, those developers also make money automatically. Yeah, we have been operating for a while. I have a traditional machine learning background, was doing that for over a decade before starting it. And excited to be here today with all the experts in this space.
Awesome, thanks all. This first prompt, it's really open to anyone and everyone to sort of jump in. You're all building critical components of the decentralized AI stack, from attribution to verification to model hubs. I guess, what do you see as the missing piece today as it stands that is preventing truly decentralized AI from emerging and flourishing and being more widely used? And anyone feel free to jump in, please.
Yeah, I can go first as I was talking already. So I think one of the biggest pieces in AI that is missing, especially in the open source space, is monetization. Of course, like I'm biased, we work on that problem. That's why I'm saying that. But that's one of the things that kind of is holding open source AI back. There are a lot of companies who released a lot of really great open source models which are really capable. But those are usually coming from those closed AI labs. We have never been able to produce open source AI models which came from the open source AI community. And that's very, very important. And why it doesn't come from the community? Because they don't have any way to monetize their work. They don't want to do free work, right? It just doesn't make sense economically. So we have to solve that problem. Like, how can we allow all of those open source developers and the open source community to monetize their work, and all of a sudden we have an economic incentive for them to come together and work together with each other. So that's my 2 cents to this.
Yeah, I think when you look at the use of AI in Web 2 centralized context versus Web 3 decentralized context, the kind of developer experience is the contrast is very stark, and kind of as a result, the permeation of usage of AI is also very, very stark, where, in Web 2, think about all the applications you use on a daily. Essentially, every one of those applications uses AI or ML to some extent in the background to optimize and improve user experience. But in Web 3, the permeation of AI is at least an order of magnitude less, where a majority of apps are, simple scripts put together. And, one of the kind of key barriers we've identified is that it's extremely difficult to build, for decentralized applications using AI in a way that is both extremely seamless and secure. Firstly, there are no Web3 specific AI models or very few of them. Secondly, you got to use, either TEEs or ZKML, and then you got to figure out how to integrate that into your protocol or application. The developer experience in Web2, on the other hand, with things like AWS SageMaker, Hugging Face, Google Vertex, is extremely seamless. You can hop on their product, couple clicks, you can deploy models into your applications and have it working in seconds, right? But that kind of key infrastructure and key developer experience is kind of missing in Web3. And we're kind of building not just infrastructure, tooling, and a developer platform, but also a lot of the models themselves to help Web3 developers kind of integrate AI in meaningful ways to improve the user experience of their applications. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think those are great responses. And just to add on a little bit, I think really when we have this developer hub that, they're building at OpenGradient and Bagel and, creates certain monetization opportunities for anyone, whether you're providing data, and creates opportunities for anyone to make, meaningful amounts of money in developing regions. And then, furthermore, the last thing that I would say is just, I think we're still at today, like AI is really cool. A lot of these demos look really cool, but people don't quite understand how hard it is to scale these to enterprise use casing and scaling. And so, I think a function of that is due to the reliability and, certain issues with hallucination and bias today. And so making sure that you can improve the accuracy of outputs, I think is going to drive a lot of growth as, you're able to remove the human in the loop, so to speak, and let these AI agents be autonomous AI agents.
Just want to add one thing, right? I think there are two parts to see this. One is how AI is used in crypto and how crypto enables AI, right? On the second one, I think a lot of crypto projects kind of started aiming to the sky, like, saying that we're going to build like a foundation model, use decentralized training to actually train models and stuff like that. I guess that's where we kind of fell short. The best way to actually go about is to tackle one single problem and just go much more deeper into that. I think decentralized compute in terms of providing it as a resource was really good with what Aether and IONET did. They kind of democratize the access to GPUs. And that's what we're also trying to do, right? We want to democratize the access to data so that you can build like better models. So tackle one particular vertical and go much more deeper into that is what I believe will enable decentralized AI to go to the next stage. Not in terms of trying to compete with the centralized AI systems, like saying that, we're going to build like a foundation model. I don't think that's the right way to do this. And on the other way around, as like, even like Matthew was talking about how AI is used in crypto. I think there's not many people who are building specialized AI services for projects in crypto. AI kind of like went a bit speculative with the AI agents and all that was happening. I think we need to go much more beneath. We need to start concentrating on infrastructure. How can we use AI in like Web3 infrastructures? How can we use AI for better sequencing? And how can you use AI in any kind of AI apps that is there? I mean, DeFi apps that is there, right? How can we use that as the first starting point for a consumer to engage with Web3? I think is the best way to see that. And we need to build models and infrastructure to support that. So these are my thoughts between how crypto can enable AI and AI can be used in crypto as well.
Awesome, thank you. For this next section, each of the projects represented here is a little bit different, obviously, in terms of how you're set up. So I wanted to give each of you in turn just a quick opportunity to talk about some of the more unique features of what you're building. So Stone, maybe we could start with you. Could you tell us a little bit about Mira's approach to verification, how that might differ from, the way in which Web 2 AI models are verified and the guardrails that exist around those? And how do you scale the Web 3 verification of these decentralized models?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And obviously, Web 2 AI is where it is for a reason. Over at Mira, we started to get really excited as we started to see open source models catching up with the likes of ChatGPT and Anthropic and the like. And so essentially we went through a phase where we started building these different flows, connecting all these disparate pieces of the AI ecosystem, whether that be data, all the latest and greatest from open source, and then partnering with all your favorite GPU providers on the inference side. But we found out that, still, even with the productivity and the rate of change in the open source community, that hallucination and bias were still a pretty big issue. And you didn't necessarily see any fantastic solutions to that. It's a double-edged sword, because if you implement more data, then it's more likely that your model hallucinates, but if you have less data, then, it's a stronger data set, but your model has a little bit more bias. And so what we found is kind of through our head of product, who's a really smart research engineer, he basically started leveraging this wisdom of the crowds, verification methodology, basically leveraging multiple different LLMs on the back end that are verifying the accuracy of your questions and your queries, and then they are forced to reach consensus before then giving you the actual outcome. And so what we've seen there, I'm not the most technical person in the world, so hopefully that made sense. But what we've seen there is a 10x improvement in terms of error rates, driving increased reliability. We just announced a really cool partnership actually today with this agent framework, GigaBrain, on virtuals. Essentially, they're trying to be more of like a Bloomberg for Web3, and so they're implementing certain trading features based off of news-based events. So, like, let's say the president tweets about crypto, you want to have your agent buy Bitcoin immediately. Mira is verifying it through these multiple LLMs, extremely powerful, experts, to make sure that this, news event actually happened before executing on your behalf with actual capital. So hopefully that helps in terms of the verification that we're doing versus, you hear a lot today about like TE and verifying, actually on the blockchain, whether it's like, these models are using synthetic data or real data. And so we're a slightly different piece of the verification puzzle focused purely on the accuracy of outputs.
Amazing, thank you. Ram, you're up next. I saw a tweet from your Twitter page 3 days ago talking about initial AI offerings. What is an initial AI offering, and how does that sort of monetization fit into the broader context of what you're building?
So I always think this, right? Running an ecosystem is like running a country, right? So you need to have as much as democracy as possible. You need to have as much as buy-in from the community. So in OpenLedger, our thesis is to enable people to build specialized AI models. But that doesn't mean that we can have anyone build AI models. We need to have some kind of semi-permissionless there. We need to figure out mechanisms where people can make sure that if they want an AI model to be available, if they want to contribute that, there is enough buy-in for that model. That's why we want to enable people to go ahead and have these models offered as an initial AI offering, where the community can go ahead and stake their tokens or buy the tokens of these models, so that they can show that these models are something that they're interested in, and these models are getting the community's interest, right? And then what it enables is the data contributors to figure out which model is the most offered model out there, and to go ahead and start contributing data sets to these models, and making sure that these models are enriched with their specialized data sets, and having this model to have the best capacity, right? Once this model gets listed and once this model gets used, the data contributors and the stakers get benefit out of this. As much as this model gets inferred, as much as revenue this model makes, a fair portion of that gets back to the data contributors, because they are one of the biggest contributions to a specialized model. In a large language model, it's the compute, data, and actually the algorithm will change the stuff. But in a specialized model, the data is the major player over here. So you want to make sure the data contributors are incentivized enough so that they continue to contribute data as much as possible, and they're incentivized to do that. And the stakers who believed in this model initially also get a portion of the revenue. So there is a cyclic economy that is being formed within all these major stakeholders. And that's the reason for the initial AI offering. And we also want to make sure this is validated. So we have something called a proof of attribution, which is basically an attribution mechanism that we have built. It figures out like which data influences the model using our own algorithm. And that proof is also put on chain. So if someone wants to challenge that, verify that, they can go ahead and do that as well. So the idea behind this is to build this economy, which Hugging Face did not intend to do. Hugging Face is open source. That's why you see like 99% of the models and data that is there is useless. You want to build a monetizing economy so that people can actually build useful models that can be used by apps and other DeFi solutions out there.
Okay, great, thank you. Matthew, OpenGradient's positioned as a full stack platform, right, for anyone to sort of create, contribute to, and deploy models. I think a key component of that in the Web3 context is verification, which we've touched on a little bit, but do you mind walking us through the different approaches to verification that exist today and how you see those scaling up over time?
Yeah, so I kind of have two takes when it comes to verification. The first take is kind of what I had thought initially when I was building OpenGradient and how I designed OpenGradient to fit that. And secondly is why I actually don't think verification is as important currently as most people make it out to be. I know that's kind of a hot take, but yeah. So firstly, we wanted to give developers whatever tools they needed to verify, let's say, things like inference, things such as like API calls with TLS, putting that in TEs and things like that. But the ultimate goal was whatever you want to build, doesn't matter what kind of model it is. It could be an Onyx ML model, it could be a large language model. You can choose whatever avenue of verification you want. And today we've built in a couple different ways of doing that. We have, of course, your standard TE. We have ZKML for smaller ML Onyx models. And we also have our own form of optimistic inference, which is secured by an eigenlayer AVS. So depending on, again, your use case, whether it's just an ML model, whether it's an LLM, you can choose whatever makes most sense from a cost to, I guess like time and trade-off standpoint. And secondly, something I've realized when I started building OpenGradient, as I started talking to clients, is that verification is definitely seen as important and people want it. But the most important bottleneck here is not that people are like, oh, you know what, I want to use AI, but I'm scared it's not verifiable. But rather, it's how do I use AI to make my DeFi protocol smarter, right? How do I use AI for risk management, right? People have no idea how to build models for these types of things, which is why we have developed kind of like a white glove service in building, risk models, vol forecasting models with Garch models and things like that in order to integrate them directly into these Web3 protocols and, have that be verifiable and secure, right? That's kind of like the cherry on top that we bring to the table. But the first and foremost is we help them identify ways they can integrate AI and ML into their protocols in order to make them more intelligent, more optimized, and better for users at the end of the day. So I guess that's kind of our current take on verifiability. But overall, I would say it's important to have flexible ways of verification. But I think providing utility is first and foremost the most important part. Once you have utility, once you have a product that people want, then you want to make it secure and verifiable.
Makes a ton of sense, and I guess each of those approaches has trade-offs. So you give your customers the ability to choose whatever best fits their use case. Stepan, quickly, it would be helpful to get the investor perspective at this point. You've been investing in decentralized AI for at least 2 years, maybe longer. I guess, what do you see as the major sort of missing pieces in this stack that hopefully get created over the coming years?
Yeah, so I think the first question, panelists gave great answers about what are potential missing pieces in decentralized AI. So there's infrastructure, verified models, compute, some agentic frameworks, some multi-agent systems. What I would say is the interesting and probably the largest opportunity for anyone interested in decentralized AI today, from like investing or founding perspective, is what comes next. Because if you think about it, AI replacing or automating or significantly enhancing many vertical, like significant portion of world GDP, this is more or less given. Like, this is inevitable, this is happening. It will happen in education, in healthcare, in management consulting, in entertainment, in coding. But this also changes not just like software layer that we use to do taxes and that doctors use, but it also changes the economic structure, because now more and more economic actors would be not people, not firms, not companies, but AI agents or AI systems. And those systems cannot rely on existing institutions and existing kind of coordination mechanisms. They cannot use traditional legal system. They cannot use DocuSign. They cannot use banking. They cannot rely on identity systems such as passports and visas or contracts. So we need to reinvent this. We need cybernetic contracts that are using credible commitments. We need reputation system for AI agents to choose and to understand, like to give permission. So if my agent is going and spending my money or like talking to your AI digital twin on my behalf, you need to be able to to authenticate it. We need systems like financial systems, and not just payments on chain that is simple, but also like the whole financial industry built for AI. So like AI agent can take a flash loan to pay for its compute, to use some verifiable model, and then deliver result to the customer, get paid, and pay back the loan. So AI agents will be able to take on entrepreneurial risk and basically make money for their owners or like token holders or whatever the ownership system is. So there's like the whole unserved and the whole like stack, the whole like half of the economy, which is coordination systems, that is not built yet. And this is like $1 trillion opportunity. And I think crypto and mechanism design and verifiable permissionless systems is the most efficient way to solve these problems.
Yeah. Please.
Okay, I have a question for Stefan actually. So Stefan mentioned that everything needs to be designed for AI agents. I've been thinking about that for a while, but one problem I think about a lot is that very soon we will have AI agents which are as intelligent as us, if not more, right? Should they get the same level of rights? If we think about AI agents, some kind of assistant, should we allow them to be an entity on their own? Right. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, that's more, I guess, philosophical question, and I invite everyone to also participate. But we've seen some examples like this Truth Terminal project, which was one of the it kickstarted the whole AI agent movement in Web3. Right now, the Audrey, the founder of that or creator of that, he's thinking about the ways how do you give actual legal sovereignty and economic sovereignty to the agent. So agent will be able to actually make financial decision on its own. So, and then there's even more philosophical questions about are these about, I don't know, consciousness and rights and are these things live entities? I think it's not a business question. I don't know how to build a startup around it, but I think it is something that we never experienced in the history of humanity. We never experienced basically competition in the intelligence, and we never experienced the new technology being developed so fast. So anything before this, internet and blockchain and I don't know, before that, computing or steam engine, any kind of technology took decades or centuries. Right now, if you look 3 years ago, the boldest forecast, the guy at the back of the room who everybody thought was the crazy guy who says something, I don't know, completely ridiculous, he was right. It's actually happening much, much faster. So I guess I don't know, but this is the most exciting thing to think about.
Amazing. I had one more sort of general prompt I wanted to throw out to people. A big part of Web3 is composability, right? Yet a lot of you are building sort of full stack solutions for basically every component of decentralized AI. I wonder, what's your view of standards that can or should be built to allow someone to train a model in one place, monetize it somewhere else, verify it somewhere else, so that we truly get composability and ultimately the developer has choice of building wherever it makes most sense for them?
I can take it. So composability is definitely very important, but especially in Web3, when we talk about composability, sometimes we think about, different chains, different L1s, L2s, and stuff like that, right? But when we think about the composability of AI, we should think about, it should be composable with Web2 counterpart of AI as well, whatever we are building here. We shouldn't require people to adopt a totally new thing to be able to just use whatever we are using. So that's the design philosophy we use at Bagel as well. We're building this infrastructure where you can train this model in a way where the contributions can be monetized. At the same time, those models can be used by Web2 counterpart of AI industry as well. It's a model, you can download it, you can deploy it on your Web2 based infrastructure. It's going to run exactly the same way. But the only difference is that we're using the cryptography part and some cryptocurrency part to allow for the monetization of that piece. So I think that's very important. Like when we think about AI, we should always think about the composability with the Web 2 stack all the time.
I think when people think of like AI agents and what the future of AI agents represents, people think about, oh yeah, in the future we're going to have AI agents that manage portfolios for you, that might manage entire companies. And when we think about, okay, so what are the concrete steps we need to take to get there? Composability is actually a big piece of the puzzle. And the reason why is that that's kind of how existing, portfolio management, it works in hedge funds or how existing companies are run. And that's kind of a big part of what we do at OpenGradient as well, which is allowing for agents as well as model composability to really be a core part of the functioning of these agentic or AI-powered applications. As an example, right, we're building this quantitative AI agent. Again, it's not just one monolithic AI agent that is able to manage a portfolio. It might leverage another AI agent to run a Markowitz mean variance style analysis to identify which tokens to buy to maximize risk-adjusted returns. To actually execute trades, it might leverage an execution agent that identifies which trading venues offer the best trading when it comes to minimizing cost or minimizing market impact. And many of these use cases, especially for more complex and abstract tasks, will require a composability element to it when it comes to piecing together different models, piecing together different workflows, data pipelines, or even agents themselves to achieve this high-level goal. And that's one of the best parts about building on blockchains, which is, smart contracts are inherently composable. You can, inference models, you can run different functions all composably and permissionlessly. And a lot of the kind of builders in our ecosystem are already leveraging all these different models, hundreds of different models that we have to build kind of these interesting use cases that are powered by not just one model or two models, but rather, multiple different types of model stacking or model ensembles that ultimately do, cooler and more abstract tasks efficiently. So, yeah.
Just to add to that, right? Like, if we take a look at OpenLedger, like we are an ecosystem of projects because there's a lot of moving parts to building a model. Like we work with a lot of data contributors in this space, and in order to get the right form of data, we need to make sure that we have like a data standard that they can follow. So that has to be composable. The data has to be composable among all these data contributors. And I think you were passing about a comment on how the models can be composable, right? We also need to make sure these models are available in every other agentic frameworks, and also any Web2 traditional product can also use these models. So there needs to be a composability factor in terms of the models as well. So in order for us to work with other ecosystem, composability is a natural thing we have to bring in. We also work with other inference partners who enable us to work with other smart contract projects. So we want to work with OpenGradient and projects like this, which can enable us to be composable among other third-party applications as well. So I think that's crucial for any decentralized AI project, because only when you have composability, there is reach. Only when there is reach, then there is usefulness of your product. So I think that's an integral part.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all the time we have. Please feel free to come and find us after this, and please give a warm round of applause to our panelists. This was great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.